It was the winter of 1967, a season when the North Atlantic seemed more a living creature than a body of water, unpredictable, cold, and dangerous. Flight 209, a pan-Atlantic cargo run from Lisbon to New York, was scheduled for a routine crossing. Captain Harold Blake, a man with 20 years of flying behind him, knew the route like the back of his hand. His crew that night consisted of First Officer Miguel Santos, a Portuguese aviator with sharp instincts, and Chief Engineer Walter Reed, who trusted machinery more than people. The weather was calm, unusually calm. Blake noted it in his log, remarking that the sea below was so still it looked like molten glass under the moonlight. There was no wind, no turbulence, only the low hum of thingins cutting through the night. At 01:42 hours, Santos was the first to notice something unusual. "Captain, do you see that?" he said, pointing through the cockpit glass. Far below, breaking the perfect blackness of the ocean, there was a pale glimmer. At first, Blake thought it was the reflection of the moon, but as they drew closer, the glimmer took shape, a tall ship, sails half-torn, listing slightly to starboard. Blake frowned. No ship should have been there. Their flight path was hundreds of miles from the nearest registered maritime route. "Walter, check the marine radar," Blake ordered. A few seconds later, Walter's voice came back, confused. "Nothing, absolutely nothing in the area." And yet there it was, an enormous 19th century clipper ship, white hull gleaming in the moonlight. Even from 10,000 feet they could make out details, ropes swaying in an unfelt wind, sails shredded in uneven patches, and strange, unmoving shapes along the deck. Curiosity, and perhaps something deeper, compelled Blake to dip the nose of the aircraft, reducing altitude to 5,000 feet. As they descended, the ship seemed to grow sharper, more real. That's when Santos leaned forward, his voice trembling. "Captain, the people, they're staring at us." The figures on deck were pale, their clothes weather-beaten, their faces fixed in eerie stillness. Dozens of eyes looked upward, not blinking, not moving. Then something strange happened. The air in the cockpit grew colder. Walter swore he saw a fine mist form inside the plane. The radio crackled, not with static, but with what sounded like faint, distant voices whispering in unrecognizable languages. Blake, his instincts screaming to climb, made a sharp bank to circle around. But as soon as they began the turn, the ship below shimmered like heat over asphalt and vanished pale. The torn sails, the slant of the deck, even the pale figures frozen at the rails, it was identical. Blake never spoke of it again in public. But years later, after his death, his daughter found his private flight journal. The last page had one final note about that night. "We followed the ghost. If we had flown lower, I fear we might have joined them." To this day, sailors report seeing strange lights in that patch of the Atlantic, and some claim they've heard the creak of wooden masts in the dead of night, even when the sea is empty for miles.